extra excited to have Patrick Murphy on to discuss the NCAA Division I Council on Monday voting to allow an additional season of eligibility to spring sports student athletes who had their seasons cut short due to the coronavirus pandemic. And Murph, I've got some questions coming up for you on how all this is going to work. But first, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Hope you guys are doing well.
Doing really well, and I know you are. Before we get to some other questions, just your reaction to this announcement that we got last night.
Well, hopefully everybody that's listening to you and a loyal listener is doing well and healthy. But, I was a little worried last week because I'd heard some grumblings about some Power 5 conferences maybe not wanting to do this, which it just floored me that, this was an opportunity to help student athletes across the board. And, that's what the NCAA is all about, the well-being of the student athlete. And, for whatever reason, it sounded like it was a big majority were in favor of it. And, your listeners need to realize the NCAA does not make this decision. It's a committee.
That's right.
Of almost 40 people from different conferences, from different schools that represent the whole body, and they make the decision. So a committee of almost 40 people, I thought, did a really good job at this. And then the other thing, they kind of, instead of saying you had to do this, this, and this, they gave it kind of back to the schools and said, okay, if you can afford this, this is what you can do. So let's say, right now, all 7 of mine have said they'd like to return. We don't really know what that's going to look like in terms of scholarships, stuff like that. But I think what you could do is you could give them at least what you gave last year. So I had 7 kids, and hopefully that's what they'll get coming forward next year. It doesn't affect our freshman class, which usually what I do is if I lose 7, I try to get 7. And then that money from the 7 that I graduated goes to the new people, and then I could save some money for seniors. And I usually try to give raises to people that have done well and just good kids and are on track to graduate and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff to get figured out, but I'm really, really happy for all the student athletes across the board in spring sports.
All right, you do have one of the top senior classes in the country. Alyssa Brown, who was injured, Bailey Hemphill, Sarah Cornell, Claire Jenkins, Crystal Goodman. Obviously for Claire, this is a huge opportunity for her because she was going to miss the entire 2020 season. Taylor Clark, and then your graduate transfer, Alexis Mack. So tremendous group there coming back, and obviously sets you up to have a fantastic team for next year, as you were hoping to have for this year. I do want to address, though, you mentioned some people not being in favor of it, and I've seen some reaction this morning, particularly from non-Power 5s. Who are saying, listen, we can't afford this. We're not going to be able to do this. And you mentioned it is on the schools. How do you address that this is going to be an inequity for some schools that can afford to bring all their seniors back, and then other schools that can't do it or don't have the finances to do it?
Well, it's, everybody has different levels of issues. So we have problems, and Stanford has problems, and Middle Tennessee State has issues. It goes across the board, and everybody has some sort of problem. But what I did like was, and let's say a kid or the school cannot afford it, the kid could come back.
Yeah, for no aid.
Yeah, and it then it kind of is up to the kid,
True.
The young lady, her family. I always say there's a will, there's a way. And if you want something bad enough, you're going to get it, and you're going to go for it and make it work. And, the other thing about Alyssa and Claire, both of them were injured. They would have been eligible for medical red shirts. So we felt pretty good about them coming back, regardless of the vote. So, but I know all 7 are excited. I talked to all of them last night. And it doesn't mean anything in terms of, quality on the field. It's hopefully a year older, a year wiser. And it's almost like everybody gets a mulligan, which never happens.
True. Yeah.
So we can look back, all of us are going to look back and say, okay, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? And then fix it, and then go into next year, hopefully a lot better.
All right, Murph, I want to be clear on this. This isn't just for seniors. Everybody gets an extra year of eligibility. So if you were a freshman this year, you're a freshman next year, and so forth and so on. You said it was not going to impact your freshman class, but your friend Patty Gasso said a few weeks ago that if this goes through, and she's in favor of it, but she said that the portal is going to light up like a Christmas tree. You say it doesn't impact your freshman class, but what if you have a freshman that you recruited and signed based on what the roster was going to look like in 2021, and now she says, Murph, This is not what I signed up for. I didn't plan on this player being back. I want to go somewhere else. Do you foresee any of that type of stuff?
I'm sure there is, and that's when you want a competitive kid, because a competitive kid isn't going to run and take her stuff and go somewhere else. A competitive kid is going to stay there and work her butt off and compete for that spot. That's what you want. You want competitive kids that are going to make everybody around them better. So in a way, it's almost a good thing, because if everybody returns for us, Gary, it's a roster of 25. So that's including the freshmen. We had 6 this year. We have 5 coming in next year. It'll be a class of 11 freshmen. So 25 on the roster, and it will be a competitive atmosphere this fall for sure. And that's what we want.
Sure.
I think the girls like that. It's no different than Alabama football when you have 25-star kids and 44-star kids all competing for a spot. So I think it could be a really good thing for the sport. And I don't believe the parity is out the window take. I think it's going to, because other schools are going to have seniors that have now gotten a second chance.
That's right.
They're going to be better. They're going to be stronger. So I think it just ups the ante for everybody. And then, kind of maybe a silver lining with the Olympics being postponed is 21 could be the year for the sport of softball.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you there 100%. 100%.
I mean, fans and media and everybody that loves the sport are going to be so excited when it finally returns. And then you get to culminate it with trying to win a gold medal in Tokyo, in July. I mean, we could look back and say, what a horrible thing that we went through, but maybe there is just this little silver lining through it all.
Going forward, just a couple more questions, Murph. So you feel good that the roster is not going to, certainly for next year, bottleneck, but going forward after next season. So you don't see any issues with roster management because of this ruling? Well,
like right now, so everybody understands, the NCAA travel roster for postseason is 20. And I know you've probably seen it before when we went to the World Series. We've never had more than 20. When we won in 12, we had 20 on the roster. Mm-hmm. Well, we played a couple teams that year where they had 25, 26. And I don't know if you noticed, but when we played those teams on TV, right above their dugout,
sitting up there
in their school clothes, were the girls that could not dress.
I did notice.
So the SEC travel roster is 22 young ladies. So I would assume for this year, those two numbers would be bumped up a little. But
yeah, that would make sense.
I don't know.
That would make sense.
So,
I hope so.
And in our sport, the SEC coaches talked maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and our sport is different than it was 10 years ago. Our pitching rosters or our pitching staffs are much bigger. And maybe this could be a move towards saying, the old days of 2 pitchers, that's gone. 4 and 5 pitchers are very, very common nowadays. Just like the baseball roster is 12 to 14 pitchers. Well, softball, we're not that many, but to go from 2 to 5 is a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think you're getting more specialization, like that defensive replacement, that pinch runner, the left-handed pitcher that goes in to get one left-handed batter, and that she calls it a day. So I think you're seeing a lot of that. And then I think because of overuse injuries, I think the rosters are getting bigger because everybody's afraid that kids are going to be hurt when they come into school. So you need another arm or two. And it definitely happened to us this year, and it was overuse and it was injuries just across the board. So this was a year that I wish I would have had more people on the roster for sure.
All right, Murph, we know the expectations for this season were so high and people were so pumped up, and the Rhodes House had been renovated, and you had the SEC tournament. I'm with you. I think this is just going to marinate now with these 7 players coming back, and it's going to be even greater next year. I do want to ask you about the SEC tournament. Do you know yet? Will you host next year? Where does that stand?
No, and they're still talking. Jenny Mines and I were hosting SEC championships.
That's right,
this year.
absolutely. Tennis, women's tennis as well.
Yeah, women's tennis, and then the other thing that kind of is kind of a weird thing about this is all these sports now decide: do we play the 20 schedule for SEC, or do we play 21?
Yep.
Yeah, and baseball didn't even start there. So I know a couple of teams were on buses or planes going to their first weekend. We played one weekend. We obviously played Arkansas. So that's going to be one thing to look for, too. And then, obviously, we'd love to host a tournament. We had sold, over 3,200 season or all-session passes, out of 4,000. The Olympic game, we had sold over $60,000 worth of tickets.
Woo!
For that Tuesday night game. And that's another, that was a bummer. I'm hoping that we can work it out where I have no idea what they're going to do next year. If they're going to try to do the tour again. But, I've already heard from a couple of the girls on the team that they really wanted to play in the Rhodes House. So hopefully we can make that happen.
And you were scheduled to host Auburn this year as well.
Yes. End of April. So yeah, we were looking forward to a lot of these home series.
Well, we'll see how that works out, because you're right.
We sold over 3,000 season tickets too.
I know, and you had such a good schedule this year. Hopefully, they can maybe meet with the coaches and bond this schedule a little bit to make sure that every team has some great. I mean, I hate you didn't get to play Auburn last year. I'd hate for you not to be able to host them next year, or certainly have to go down there. That would not be good. But we'll see.
Yep.
Well, Coach, congratulations. I know you're thrilled, and you're thrilled for your players, and this is an opportunity now. One final question though before we go, and you're such not just a coach, but you're such a sports fan, and I know it has to be cut off somewhere, but I feel a little disappointment for the winter sports athletes. I know they played most of their season, but you play all year to get to the postseason, and they had that taken away from them, and it's never going to be given back. You're just a quick take on that.
Yeah, I think the one that really punched me in the gut was watching the indoor track championships out in New Mexico, and they were literally warming up on the track and in the infield, and they were about to start, the NCAA championships, and everybody was told to go home. And I know Alabama had at least 20 athletes there, and that was heartbreaking to see, because I watched a little bit of it on Twitter too, the kids warming up and stuff, but that was a shocker to me. And then, obviously there's no way you could do it with the young man in the NBA, that once he tested positive, and then, it was like,
had to shut it down.
The dominoes just fell in a hurry.
Yep, it sure did.
The suddenness was the thing that just punched everybody in the gut, Yep,
it's unprecedented for all of us in the world, and I know you being without Major League Baseball is a challenge for you, but hopefully, and I know we all agree on this, we pray that things get back to normal soon, and not just from a sports standpoint.
We need to do what we need to do, though.
That's right, we do. We have to be mindful of what we need to do, and maybe this will be over sooner rather than later. Hey, Murph, I know you're busy. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, good to talk to you, Gary. Stay healthy.